Captain Allison Wright stood at the viewport of the UES Intrepid, watching as the massive HFY space station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. After decades of searching the cosmos for intelligent life, humanity had finally made contact with not just one alien civilization, but an entire confederation of species. Today marked humanity's official introduction to the galactic community. "Nervous, Captain?" Commander Eric Barnes asked, moving to stand beside her. "I'd be a fool not to be," Allison replied with a small smile. "First official diplomatic mission to an alien confederation. This goes in the history books, Eric." The Intrepid was Earth's newest deep space vessel, built with a blend of human innovation and technological insights gleaned from initial exchanges with the HFY. Most of its capabilities remained classified even to some of its crew. What the public knew was that it represented the best of human engineering and carried Earth's hopes for peaceful integration into the wider galactic community. "Final checks. Complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Wilson from her station. "The diplomatic team is ready in the shuttle bay." Allison nodded. "Good. Tell them I'll be down shortly." She turned to her XO. "Commander Barnes, you have the bridge. Keep an open channel and remember protocol. If anything seems off, don't wait for confirmation. Get our people out." "Understood, Captain. Good luck down there." The shuttle bay buzzed with activity as final preparations were made. The diplomatic team consisted of 3 specialists: Patricia Miller, Earth's top negotiator with 20 years of international mediation experience; Dr. Kevin Foster, xenobiologist who had been studying the limited biological data shared by the HFY; and Major John Carter, military advisor and security chief for the mission. "Everyone clear on objectives?" Allison asked as she approached. Patricia nodded, straightening her formal blue uniform. "Establish diplomatic relations, discuss potential trade agreements, and explore cultural exchange opportunities, all while avoiding any statements that could be misconstrued as binding Earth to unknown obligations. And we maintain biological protocols at all times," added Dr. Foster, patting his medical kit, "no matter how safe they claim their environment is." Major Carter did a final check of his sidearm, a ceremonial gesture, as they had agreed to attend unarmed except for one security officer. "I still think this is too exposed, Captain. We know almost nothing about these HFY beyond what they've chosen to share." "Which is why we're proceeding carefully," Allison replied. "But diplomacy requires good faith. Let's show them humanity comes in peace but isn't naive." The journey to the station took only minutes. As they docked, Allison felt a flicker of worry. Something about the station's positioning seemed different from the schematics they'd been provided. She made a mental note to have Commander Barnes run additional scans from the Intrepid. They were greeted by tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. The lead HFY representative introduced himself as Ambassador Telk. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the alien said, voice melodic through the translation device. "We are honored by your presence and look forward to formal relations between our peoples." The initial meeting proceeded smoothly in a large chamber with representatives from what appeared to be 3 different HFY subspecies. Patricia led most of the discussion, with occasional input from Dr. Foster regarding biological compatibility questions for future face-to-face meetings. During a brief recess, Major Carter approached Allison quietly. "Captain, something's off. The station's internal layout doesn't match the plans we were given, and I've counted at least 6 different species working here, not just HFY." Before Allison could respond, Dr. Foster joined them, looking concerned. "The biological readings I'm getting don't match our HFY data either. These beings have similar appearance but different physiological markers." A cold feeling settled in Allison's stomach. "Patricia," she called softly, "wrap up whatever you're discussing. We need to return to the shuttle." As Patricia excused herself from the alien delegates, a sudden alarm blared throughout the station. The doors to the chamber sealed shut with a hiss. "What's happening?" Allison demanded of Ambassador Telk, whose skin had shifted to a deep purple. The ambassador tilted his head as if listening to something, Then his form seemed to shimmer and change. The elegant, tall figure became stockier, with rougher features and mottled gray skin. "Captain Wright," the being said, no longer using the translation device but speaking in perfect English. "I am Krazthul of the Vraxian Dominion. I regret to inform you that this meeting was not as advertised." The other Zithrai were transforming as well, revealing themselves as a completely different species. Guards with weapons materialized from hidden panels in the walls. Major Carter moved to protect the diplomatic team, but was quickly subdued by a weapon that fired some sort of paralyzing energy. "What is the meaning of this?" Patricia demanded. "We came in peace as representatives of Earth." Krazthul made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, and we appreciate your punctuality. The actual Zithrai representatives were delayed. They send their regrets." "You're not part of the Confederation?" Dr. Foster realized aloud. "Perceptive," Krazthul responded. "The Zithrai are legitimate, but we intercepted their communications with your world. Such an opportunity was too valuable to pass up." Allison's hand moved to her emergency beacon, but Krazthul noticed. "I wouldn't bother, Captain. Your ship is already under our control. A simple matter, really. Your technology is quaint." A view screen activated, showing the Intrepid surrounded by 3 larger vessels of unfamiliar design. Even from this distance, Allison could see boarding parties forcing their way into her ship. "Who are you? What do you want?" she demanded. "We are Vraxians. We specialize in high-value asset acquisition and exchange. In simpler terms that humans might understand, we take important things and return them for payment." "Pirates!" Major Carter spat from the floor, the paralysis apparently wearing off. "Such an inelegant term," Krazthul replied. "We prefer specialized traders. And today, we've acquired something very special. Earth's first diplomatic team. The question now is, what will your planet pay for your safe return?" Dr. Foster helped Major Carter to his feet as Patricia moved closer to Allison. "Earth doesn't negotiate with hostage takers," Allison stated firmly. Krazthul's mottled skin rippled in apparent amusement. "Every species says that at first, but when faced with the alternative, well, let's just say we've never failed to secure payment." The alien turned to address his crew. "Secure the humans, prepare transmission equipment for their ransom message, and inform the boarding parties on their vessel to be thorough. I want to know everything about these humans." As they were led away under guard, Allison caught Patricia's eye. The negotiator gave an almost imperceptible nod. They had trained for first contact going wrong, though perhaps not quite this wrong. The Vraxians believed they had captured helpless diplomats from a naive species new to the galactic stage. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of when threatened. And they would soon learn that unlike other species they had encountered, Earth had a very simple policy regarding ransom demands. They don't pay them. The emergency alert came through at 0300 hours Earth Standard Time. Defense Secretary Diane Winters was pulled from sleep by the harsh buzz of her secure line. She was fully awake in seconds, years of crisis management training kicking in as she answered. "Madam Secretary, we have a situation," said the voice of General Paul Adams. "The Intrepid mission has been compromised. We need you at command immediately." 40 minutes later, Diane sat in the crisis room of the United Earth Government headquarters, surrounded by military brass and intelligence officers. The room hummed with tense energy as they watched the message playing on the main screen. 3 aliens' mottled gray face filled the display. "Greetings, leaders of Earth. I am Warlord Krazthul of the Vraxian Dominion. We have acquired your diplomatic team and vessel during their misguided attempt to meet with the Zithrai Confederation." The camera panned to show Captain Wright and her team under guard. "They are unharmed for now. Their continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation." "What do they want?" President Gary Mitchell asked, his face grim in the blue light of the displays. "The usual," General Adams replied. "Resources, technology, weapons. They've demanded 50 tons of rare earth elements, complete schematics for our fusion drives, and weapons technology. They claim it's a standard exchange rate for diplomatic personnel." They think we're just another easy target, Diane said, studying the alien's confident demeanor. A young officer cleared her throat. Ma'am, we've received a partial transmission from the Intrepid. Communications specialist Lisa Murphy managed to activate the emergency quantum channel before the ship was completely secured. The room fell silent as a new recording played. Captain Wright's voice came through, broken and static-filled. Hostage situation, aliens called Vraxians, piracy operation. They expect ransom. Don't comply. Implement Thunderbolt. Repeat, implement Thunderbolt. Can we establish communication with Captain Wright? The President asked. Negative, sir, the officer replied. But we believe she still has access to her emergency transmitter. We can send a short message. President Mitchell nodded slowly, making his decision. Send this. Message received. Thunderbolt authorized. Hold position. General Adams raised an eyebrow. Thunderbolt, sir? Are you certain? The Vraxians need to understand that Earth doesn't respond to threats, Mitchell said firmly. Diane, prepare a response to their ransom demand. I want to address them personally. 3 hours later, the Vraxian warlord received Earth's official response. The alien seemed amused as President Mitchell's face appeared on his screen. Warlord Krasithul, I am President Gary Mitchell of the United Earth Government. I have received your demands regarding our people. Allow me to be perfectly clear. To our alien captors, we don't pay ransoms. The President's expression remained calm but determined. You have 72 hours to release our people before we demonstrate exactly why that policy exists. This is not a negotiation. The transmission ended, leaving the Vraxian leadership puzzled. They had encountered many species over decades of piracy, and all eventually paid to recover their people. These humans were either bluffing or foolish. What do we know about human military capabilities? Krasithul asked his intelligence officer. Very limited, Warlord, the officer replied. They have a small fleet of ships, all significantly less advanced than ours. Their weapons are primitive energy-based systems. They've never ventured beyond their home system except for this diplomatic mission. Krasithul nodded, satisfied. Then their threats are empty. Send another message. Double the ransom demand and inform them that for each day they delay, one hostage will suffer. On the captured Earth vessel, Captain Wright sat in a makeshift cell with Patricia Miller, both watching their captors through narrowed eyes. They've underestimated us, Patricia whispered. Everyone does, Allison replied quietly. Did you see their security systems? Vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse, just like Dr. Foster suspected based on their technology. Patricia nodded. Major Carter is already working on the others. The Vraxians separated us, but they put him with that group of aliens who were also being held for ransom. Perfect, Allison said with a small smile. Earth has 72 hours to prepare Thunderbolt. We need to be ready. In another section of the station, Dr. Foster was carefully examining the food given to them. Fascinating, he muttered to himself. Their biochemistry must be sulfur-based. That would explain the reaction Lieutenant Wilson described. When the guard wasn't looking, he scratched a small marking into the wall, the first signal to the other captives that their plan was proceeding. Meanwhile, on Earth, a flurry of activity had begun. 3 unmarked vessels were being prepared in a hidden facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean. These ships bore no resemblance to the public face of Earth's space program. They were sleek, black, and designed with technology that humanity had kept secret even from its own people. Status report, Diane Winters demanded as she entered the launch facility. Alpha and Beta teams are ready, Madam Secretary, reported Admiral Frank Bennett. The Shadow, Phantom, and Wraith are at full operational capacity. Stealth systems have been upgraded with the latest Vraxian countermeasures. Countermeasures, how do we have those ready? This isn't the first time we've encountered the Vraxians, ma'am, Admiral Bennett said grimly. They've been probing our outer research stations for months. We've been studying them while making them think they were studying us. And they have no idea? None. Our public ships use outdated technology deliberately. These vessels, he gestured to the sleek ships, in the launch bay, represent our actual capabilities. Diane nodded slowly. I always thought Protocol Thunderbolt was theoretical, a contingency plan we'd never need to use. The first rule of space, Madam Secretary. Never reveal your true strength until necessary. Admiral Bennett turned to his crew. Colonel Susan Grant, front and center, a tall woman with short red hair, stepped forward. Rescue team is prepped and ready, sir. Tech Specialist Corporal Andy Williams has finished programming the countermeasures for their security systems. Good. Your primary objective is recovery of all hostages. Secondary objective is to send a message. What message would that be, sir? Colonel Grant asked. Admiral Bennett's expression hardened. That humanity does not take kindly to those who threaten our people. That we do not pay ransoms, we pay visits. As the Earth forces prepared their rescue operation, aboard the Vraxian station, Major John Carter was making progress of his own. The Vraxians had placed him with a group of captives from 3 different worlds, all diplomats or officials being held for ransom. Your worlds paid for your release? He asked a blue-skinned alien who introduced himself as Ambassador Krell. All worlds pay eventually, Krell replied sadly. The Vraxians are too powerful to resist. John shook his head. Not where I come from. Earth doesn't negotiate with hostage takers. Then your people will die, another alien said matter-of-factly. The Vraxians do not bluff. Neither do we, John replied. And if I were you, I'd stay close to me when the alarms start. The aliens exchanged confused glances, but something in the humans' confidence gave them pause. Perhaps these humans knew something they didn't. 2 days later, as the Vraxian warlord prepared to make good on his threat to harm the first hostage, his security chief burst into the command center. Warlord, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. Krazathul frowned. Earth vessels? Impossible to say. They're not registering properly on our scanners. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed the warlord's face. Perhaps these humans weren't as primitive as they had thought. Dr. Kevin Foster watched the Vraxian guard from the corner of his eye. 3 days of captivity had given him plenty of time to study their biology. The aliens had scales rather than skin, breathed through slits in their necks, and seemed to communicate partly through color changes in the membranes around their eyes. Most importantly, he had noticed their strong reaction to certain smells. It's time, he whispered to Lieutenant Amy Wilson, who shared his cell. Amy nodded and casually moved toward the food tray they had been saving. Over the past 2 days, they had allowed certain foods to ferment based on Dr. Foster's instructions. The resulting mixture gave off compounds similar to what he suspected were Vraxian alarm pheromones. Excuse me, Amy called to the guard. I think our food has gone bad. The guard approached reluctantly. Vraxians viewed humans as soft, weak creatures, but they were still cautious. As the guard leaned down to inspect the tray, Dr. Foster tipped it slightly, releasing the full odor of the fermented food. The effect was immediate. The guard's eye membranes flashed bright orange, and he stumbled backward, making a high-pitched, trilling sound that echoed through the detention area. Within seconds, 2 more guards rushed in, their own membranes changing color in response to their comrades' distress. What's happening? One demanded, weapon raised. Don't know, gasped the affected guard. Danger, smell. In the confusion, no one noticed Amy slipping her hand into the first guard's pocket, extracting a small device that controlled the cell doors. Across the detention block, Captain Wright heard the commotion and smiled faintly. Right on schedule. She caught Patricia Miller's eye and nodded once. It was time for Phase 2. Patricia immediately began to hyperventilate, dropping to her knees in apparent distress. Can't breathe, she gasped, clutching at her throat dramatically. Their guard rushed to the cell door, uncertain what to do. Vraxian protocol stated hostages were to be kept alive until ransom was paid or refused, but he had no knowledge of human medical needs. What's wrong with her? He demanded. Air composition, Allison said urgently. Your atmosphere has too much nitrogen for extended human exposure. She needs help now. The guard hesitated, then opened the cell door. As soon as he stepped inside, Allison struck. Her movements were precise and practiced, the result of years of zero-G combat training that all Earthship captains received. The guard never had a chance to realize that Earth's atmosphere actually contained more nitrogen than the Vraxian station. "Nice acting," Allison said as she helped Patricia up. "High school drama club," Patricia replied with a grim smile, taking the guard's weapon. "Never thought those skills would save my life someday." In yet another section of the detention area, Major John Carter had made significant progress with the alien prisoners. Ambassador Krell and representatives from the Novan and Peldar systems listened intently as he explained his plan. "The Vraxians have never faced organized resistance from inside their own holding cells," John explained. "They rely on fear and the assumption that captives will sit quietly waiting for ransom." "But what can we do?" asked the Novan representative, a small furred being with large eyes. "They have weapons and we do not." "We have numbers and surprise," John replied. "And soon, we'll have a distraction." As if on cue, alarms began blaring. Throughout the station, the sound was followed by flickering lights and the sudden shutdown of the energy barriers that formed part of their cell. "That would be Dr. Foster's contribution," John said with satisfaction. "The Vraxians are about to learn that human xenobiologists don't just study alien biology, they figure out how to use it." On the command deck, Warlord Krauze-Thule was growing increasingly concerned. The strange vessels that had appeared at the edge of their sensor range had seemingly vanished, but now internal systems were malfunctioning across the station. "Report," he demanded of his security chief. "Multiple alerts in the detention levels," the chief responded. "And our sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures inside the station." "Inside impossible." "Sir," interrupted a junior officer, eyes wide with alarm. "The human prisoners, they're free and armed with our weapons." Krauze-Thule's scales darkened with rage. "How? They're just diplomats." The security chief accessed the surveillance system, showing footage of the humans moving with military precision through the corridors. "Sir, these don't move like diplomats. These move like soldiers." For the first time, real concern flickered across the warlord's face. "All guards to detention level. Secure the prisoners at any cost." In the main corridor connecting the detention areas, Captain Wright's team met up with Dr. Foster and Lieutenant Wilson. They were soon joined by Major Carter, leading a group of alien diplomats who looked both frightened and amazed. "Status report," Allison ordered. "The diversion worked," Dr. Foster said. "Their biology makes them highly susceptible to olfactory triggers. I created something similar to their danger pheromones from our food rations. I've mapped the station layout," Lieutenant Wilson added, holding up a stolen data pad. "Central Command is 2 levels up, and I've located where they're holding the rest of our crew." "Good work. Major, who are your friends?" John gestured to the aliens behind him. "Fellow captives. The Vraxians have been running this operation for years, extorting ransoms across multiple systems. They've never had anyone refuse payment before." Ambassador Krell stepped forward. "Your people fight when captured. Ours do not. This is new to us." "Where we come from," Allison explained, "we have a saying. The best way to deal with ransom demands is to make the cost of taking hostages too high to be profitable." A sudden explosion rocked the station, causing everyone to brace against the walls. "That's not us," Patricia said, looking worried. Allison checked the stolen communication device she'd taken from a guard. "No, it's help. Earth kept their word. 72 hours exactly." Deep in space, 3 Earth vessels had decloaked simultaneously, revealing their presence less than a kilometer from the Vraxian station. The UES Shadow led the formation, flanked by the Phantom and Wraith. All 3 ships were angular, black, and bristling with weapons far beyond what the Vraxians believed humans possessed. "All ships weapons-free," Admiral Bennett ordered from the Shadow's bridge. "Target their engines and weapons only. We want this station disabled, not destroyed." "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we're detecting multiple life signs matching human patterns. They appear to be mobile and armed." Bennett smiled. "Captain Wright didn't wait for rescue. Good. Colonel Grant, prepare your team for boarding." Coordinate with our people inside. Colonel Susan Grant nodded sharply. Yes, sir. Corporal Williams has already hacked into their communication network. We're establishing contact with Captain Wright now. On the Vraxian station, Allison heard a familiar voice through the stolen communicator. Captain Wright, this is Colonel Grant of UES Shadow. Do you copy? Allison felt a surge of pride as she responded. Colonel, this is Wright. We've freed ourselves and multiple alien hostages. Request support to secure command center and extract all personnel. Copy that, Captain. We're coming in. Hold your position. Major Carter looked at the communicator in surprise. They sent a full combat team for a diplomatic rescue? Allison's expression hardened. Earth takes care of its own, Major, and we're about to show the galaxy exactly what happens when someone takes our people hostage. Throughout the station, Vraxian crew members were panicking. Their sensors showed 3 human vessels that hadn't been there moments before. Vessels with technology that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. Inside their station, armed humans were fighting with skills no diplomat should possess. And now breaching pods were attaching to multiple entry points around the station. As the first Earth Special Forces team cut through an airlock door, Warlord Krazathul realized he had made a terrible miscalculation. These humans weren't like the other species they had successfully ransomed over the years. They weren't going to pay. They were going to take. Colonel Susan Grant moved through the station corridors with her team following close behind. Unlike the bulky environmental suits most space travelers wore, Earth's Special Forces were equipped with sleek combat armor that allowed for complete freedom of movement. The material could harden instantly at impact points while remaining flexible everywhere else. Contact in 30 seconds, she informed her team through the secured comm system. Captain Wright and her people should be just beyond this junction. Tech. Specialist Corporal Andy Williams monitored his portable scanner. I'm reading 15 human life signs ahead, plus several non-human signatures that don't match Vraxian patterns. The other hostages, Susan confirmed. Remember, we secure all friendlies regardless of species. They rounded the corner to find Captain Wright's group waiting, weapons ready. For a moment, both sides held position, then Susan removed her helmet. Captain Wright, Colonel Susan Grant, Earth Special Operations. Looks like you started the party without us. Allison lowered her borrowed weapon. We didn't want to be rude and keep you waiting, Colonel. The 2 women clasped arms in the traditional military greeting. Susan noted that despite days in captivity, the captain and her crew looked remarkably composed and organized. I see you've made some friends, Susan said, nodding toward the alien diplomats who were watching the Earth soldiers with obvious fascination. Ambassador Krell and representatives from the Novan and Peldar systems. Allison introduced them. They were also being held for ransom. Susan turned to the blue-skinned Ambassador Krell. Consider yourselves under Earth's protection, Ambassador. We'll get you all home safely. The alien diplomat bowed slightly. Never before has any species come to rescue those not of their own kind from the Vraxians. We are in your debt. No debt, Susan replied firmly. Just remember that not all species will abandon others to save themselves. She turned back to Allison. We need to move. Admiral Bennett wants this station secured in 60 minutes. My team will escort the alien diplomats to our extraction point. You and your crew are welcome to join them. Allison exchanged glances with her team. With respect, Colonel, we'd prefer to help finish what we started. This is personal now. Susan smiled grimly. I thought you might say that. Very well. We're heading for Central Command. The Warlord is holed up there with his senior officers. As they moved through the station, they encountered pockets of resistance, but the Vraxians were clearly unprepared for the coordinated assault. Earth's combat teams had trained specifically for ship and station boarding operations for generations, perfecting tactics that the Vraxians had never experienced. Their security systems are primitive, Corporal Williams commented as he bypassed another locked door. They've relied on intimidation rather than technology for too long. Bullies often do, Patricia Miller observed. She had insisted on joining. The assault team, proving surprisingly adept with the alien weapon she had appropriated. They never expect victims to fight back effectively. Lieutenant Wilson pointed to a large door ahead. Central Command should be through there. Heavy security protocols, but their backup systems are failing. That would be our ships, Susan explained. We're running targeted electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their systems without damaging life support. Corporal Williams connected his device to the door's control panel. I'll have it open in 30 seconds. Be ready for anything, Susan warned. Cornered enemies are the most dangerous. Inside Central Command, Warlord Krazathul was frantically trying to regain control of his station. Reports of humans appearing everywhere flooded in, along with disturbing news that his ships were being systematically disabled by the Earth vessels. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officer. They're a newly spacefaring species. Their technology should be decades behind ours. Sir, the officer replied, voice shaking. Analysis suggests they deliberately presented inferior technology in their public ships. These vessels, they're unlike anything we've encountered. They tricked us, Krazathul realized, his scales paling with fear. They knew we were watching them. The security chief rushed in. Warlord, humans are approaching Central Command. Our defenses are failing. Seal all doors. Activate emergency protocols. The main door to Central Command suddenly sparked and began to glow red around the edges. The Vraxians watched in horror as the reinforced metal began to melt. Through the growing opening, they could see armored figures waiting. Colonel Grant's voice came through clearly. Warlord Krazathul, this is Colonel Susan Grant of the United Earth Defense Force. Your station is surrounded, your ships disabled. Surrender now or face the consequences. Krazathul hesitated, then drew himself up proudly. Vraxians do not surrender. We have dominated the space lanes for generations. We will not bow to primitives. The door finally gave way, and Earth forces poured into the command center. The Vraxians fought desperately, but they were overwhelmed by superior tactics and training. Within minutes, only Krazathul remained standing, cornered against his command console. Captain Wright stepped forward, facing the warlord directly. Remember me? The helpless diplomat you thought would make an easy ransom? Krazathul's eye membranes flashed with confusion. You fight like warriors, not diplomats. You tricked us. No, Allison corrected him. You made assumptions. On Earth, even our diplomats receive basic military training. It's standard procedure. The warlord looked from face to face, seeing no mercy in the human expressions. What will you do with us? Execute us as examples? That's not how we operate, Colonel Grant said, stepping forward. You'll be detained and your victims compensated from your assets. The various governments you've wronged will determine your final fate, and the station will be returned to its rightful owners once we've removed all traces of your operation. As the Vraxian was led away in restraints, Admiral Bennett's voice came through on the comm system. Status report, Colonel? Central Command secured. Admiral, all hostages recovered safely. We've also freed diplomats from 3 other systems who were being held for ransom. Excellent work. And our message? Susan looked to Captain Wright, who nodded firmly. Message delivered clearly, sir. The Vraxians understand now. On the bridge of the shadow, Admiral Bennett smiled grimly. Good. Have all personnel prepare for extraction. We leave in 30 minutes. As the Earth forces began organizing their withdrawal, Ambassador Krell approached Captain Wright and Colonel Grant. Your people acted with remarkable efficiency and coordination. Such a response to hostage-taking is unprecedented in our experience. Earth has a long history of dealing with those who take hostages, Allison explained. We learned centuries ago that paying ransoms only encourages more kidnappings. But the resources you committed to this rescue, the ambassador said, gesturing to the soldiers and ships. Surely the ransom would have been less costly. Colonel Grant shook her head. It's not about cost, it's about principle and deterrence. Your world must be very unified to respond so decisively, another alien diplomat observed. We have our differences, Allison admitted. But some things we agree on completely. Taking care of our people is one of them. As they prepared to leave the station, Corporal Williams approached with interesting news. Colonel Captain, we've accessed their database. The Vraxians have been operating this ransom scheme across 12 star systems for over 30 years. They've collected payments, worth billions in Earth currency. And records of all their victims, Allison asked. Complete records. Names, species, ransom amounts, everything. Colonel Grant smiled. Perfect. We'll make sure every victim's government receives copies. The Vraxians' days of preying on travelers are over. As the last of the Earth forces boarded their ships, Captain Wright took a final look at the Vraxian station. Do you think they'll learn from this? She asked Colonel Grant. The Vraxians? Maybe not. But others will. Susan gestured to where the alien diplomats were already sharing their experiences with their governments via communication channels. The galaxy just learned something important about humanity. What's that? We don't pay ransoms, Susan said firmly. We pay visits. 1 week after the rescue operation, Captain Allison Wright stood at attention in the main hall of the United Earth Government headquarters. Behind her stood her crew, Commander Eric Barnes, Patricia Miller, Dr. Kevin Foster, Major John Carter, and Lieutenant Amy Wilson. All were dressed in formal uniforms, looking considerably better than they had during their captivity. President Gary Mitchell approached the podium, facing not only the Earth officials present but also representatives from a dozen alien species who had requested to attend. Among them sat Ambassador Krell and the other former hostages, watching with interest. Today we honor the crew of the UES Intrepid, the president began. Their first contact mission did not go as planned, but their actions in the face of danger have established humanity's place in the galactic community more effectively than any diplomatic meeting could have. He turned to address the alien representatives. For those visiting Earth for the first time, welcome. What you witnessed in the Vraxian incident was not an exception, but a fundamental principle of our society. We protect our own, and we stand against those who use intimidation and fear as tools. Ambassador Krell stood, his blue skin shimmering under the lights. President Mitchell, if I may speak? The president nodded. For generations, many species have suffered under the threat of Vraxian raids. We paid ransoms because we believed resistance was futile. Your people have shown us another way. The Peldar, Novan, and Zithrai delegations have authorized me to propose a formal alliance with Earth, focused on mutual defense and the elimination of hostage-taking as a practice in our shared space. Murmurs of approval spread through the hall. President Mitchell smiled. We would be honored to discuss such an arrangement, Ambassador. After the ceremony, a private meeting was convened in a secure conference room. Admiral Frank Bennett and Colonel Susan Grant joined Captain Wright's team, along with Defense Secretary Diane Winters and representatives from the newly proposed alliance. The fall of the Vraxian operation has created quite a stir, Secretary, Winters explained. We've received communication requests from 27 previously unknown species in the past week alone. Word travels fast, Admiral Bennett said, especially news of Warlord Krazathul's capture. Ambassador Krell nodded. The Vraxians operated with impunity for decades. No one believed they could be stopped. What will happen to them? Patricia, Miller asked. Representatives from all affected worlds will hold a joint trial, Secretary Winters explained. We've offered Earth as a neutral location. Dr. Foster leaned forward. And the other victims? There must be hundreds based on their records. We're coordinating with the Zithrai Confederation to locate and assist all past victims, the Admiral confirmed. Already, 3 missing diplomatic ships have been recovered. Major Carter turned to Admiral Bennett. Sir, there's something I don't understand. The Vraxians had been watching Earth for months according to our intelligence. How did they not know about our military capabilities? Admiral Bennett smiled slightly. Operation Glass Window. Everything the Vraxians saw was exactly what we wanted them to see. We've maintained 2 space programs since we first detected alien signals 50 years ago, Secretary Winters explained. The public one with outdated technology that we show to the galaxy, and the real one. A wise precaution, Ambassador Krell said. My people could learn much from yours. And we from you, President Mitchell replied as he entered the room. The best alliances are those where all parties benefit from the exchange. He turned to Captain Wright. Allison, we'll need a new diplomatic team to engage with the Alliance representatives. Given your recent experience, I can't think of anyone better qualified. Allison straightened. It would be an honor, Mr. President. Good. Because the UES Intrepid has been repaired and upgraded, you'll be departing next week for the Zethri homeworld, this time with a proper escort. After the meeting concluded, Captain Wright stood with her crew looking out at the Washington Monument through the large windows of the conference room. Hard to believe a week ago we were prisoners on an alien station, Commander Barnes remarked. And now we're founding members of the First Interstellar Alliance, Patricia added. Dr. Foster nodded thoughtfully. The Vraxians did us a favor, in a way. Without that incident, we might have spent years in careful diplomatic dances before establishing meaningful relationships with other species. Nothing brings people together like a common enemy, Major Carter observed. Allison watched as Ambassador Krell conversed enthusiastically with President Mitchell across the room. The galaxy is learning something important about humanity far earlier than we expected. What's that, Captain? Lieutenant Wilson asked. That we value freedom above safety, principles above convenience, and that we take care of our own. 2 days later, on a secure communication channel that reached across the galaxy, Admiral Bennett delivered a formal message to be broadcast on all known frequencies used by spacefaring civilizations. This is Admiral Frank Bennett of the United Earth Fleet. Recent events have necessitated that we introduce ourselves to the galactic community earlier than planned. For those unfamiliar with humanity, we offer both friendship and warning. He paused, his expression firm but not threatening. Earth seeks peaceful relations with all species. We welcome trade, cultural exchange, and mutual development. However, we will respond decisively to any threat against our people or our allies. We do not pay ransoms. We do not abandon our own, and we do not forget those who harm us. The message concluded with an open invitation for diplomatic contact and a set of coordinates for a newly established neutral meeting station. Across the galaxy, the message was received with varying reactions. Some species immediately began preparing diplomatic missions. Others, those with histories of raiding and intimidation similar to the Vraxians, quietly altered their patrol routes to avoid human space. On a distant trading outpost, a group of mercenary captains watched a recording of the Vraxian station being systematically disabled by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. They came for just a handful of their kind, one captain muttered. Deployed their best ships and soldiers for a few diplomats. The Vraxians had been raiding for decades without consequences, another replied. One encounter with these humans, and their entire operation collapsed. The oldest captain, a scarred veteran of countless raids, stood up and deleted the coordinates of human space from his navigation computer. Spread the word, he told the others. Don't take humans hostage. They don't pay ransoms. He looked at the image of Earth ships on the screen one last time. They pay visits. 6 months later, the UES Intrepid, now flagship of a small but impressive fleet, led the first official Earth diplomatic mission to the newly formed Galactic Cooperation Council. As Captain Wright prepared to address the assembled representatives, she thought about how much had changed because of one failed ransom demand. Earth had entered the galactic stage not as a minor player seeking acceptance, but as a founding member of a new coalition dedicated to mutual protection and the elimination of piracy. The message had been delivered clearly across the stars. Humanity would not be intimidated, would not abandon its people, and would always respond to threats with overwhelming force. In the Great Hall of the Council, representatives from 47 worlds listened as Captain Allison Wright began her address. On behalf of Earth and the Allied systems, I bring greetings of peace and an invitation to join us in creating a safer galaxy for all.